times mark. So if you're a bluesy, rocky guitar player, you've probably came along a chord progression like A minor, F dominant 7th, E7. And when you take a look at it, it's sort of in A minor, so the A minor pentatonic will work. In general, you just need to pay a little bit of close attention to some of the odd notes here and there. Like if we're in A minor, the F dominant 7th chord, which is in the A minor chord and in the A minor pentatonic scale, also has the note F, which isn't really in our A minor pentatonic scale. So if you land on an E against that F, it's not like it will necessarily sound bad or good, it just might not be the sound you're looking for. And the same thing with some of the notes on the E chord, so whether it's in a conscious or unconscious way, we end up targeting some of the notes that are shared between all of these chords. But what if I tell you there's an extra spicier way to do it? That might sort of be contrary to the way we think about when we try to solo over some of these chord progressions and still try to outline the chords. I know this might always sound a little bit weird, so let me just show you. But before I do, I just want to say, please subscribe to my channel. You're probably aware that YouTube's been acting a little bit weird lately. Even if you subscribe to a channel, those channels' videos may really not show up in our subscription box. And even if you ring the notification bell thingy below, you still really been helping me notify of that channel's content. So if you want to stay tuned to my videos, not only do I suggest subscribing and turning on all the notifications, but also follow me on social media. Not only do I post some exclusive stuff that I can provide solos and jamming over backing tracks, and generally wherever I'm up to at the moment, but I always post about my videos. Links for the usual suspects will be below, but in general at my English guitar. And since they're downloaded, please consider leaving a like and perhaps share this video on social media, I'd highly appreciate it. But getting back to the video itself, what I meant about the other way to outline these sorts of chords, still staying in key and not being so predictable and whatever, that might sort of be contrary to the way we think about improvising over these sorts of chords. It's if we forget about the A minor chord, because for that chord we can just use our minor pentatonic bluesy licks. The F dominant 7th, for example. This is one of those simplified shapes without the 5th, but even if we add the 5th, whether in this position or in this position, the notes on that chord are F, A, C, and E flat. And if you know a little bit of theory, you know that we can improvise over these two chords, sort of using like A Aeolian or A natural minor. And in that key, the natural chord would be F major 7. But we don't really have an F major 7. We have an F dominant 7th. And if we wanted to play a similar scale to the A minor scale when we go to the F dominant 7th chord, we could perhaps think of C melodic minor. And think about the F mode or the 4th mode of that scale, which would be a Lydian dominant 7th chord. And I've done videos about the melodic minor scale, which you can check out right there. But we're not really talking about that sort of soloing style today, because I mentioned that in this video we weren't really going to talk about scales. We were just going to take our previous approach, which would be, okay, the notes in the F dominant 7th chord being F, A, C, and E flat. Some of the notes are in our regular minor scale and minor pentatonic scale, so let's just focus on those notes. For instance, if we take the A natural minor scale, and I go between the A minor and F dominant 7th chord, I can outline an F major chord. Maybe not an F dominant 7th chord, but I can outline an F major chord using that scale, and it would sound fine, because I would be targeting notes that are in that scale, the F, A, and C. Again, for the first part, it's just a bluesy lick, just minor pentatonic, no extra notes. And next I just sort of outlined an F major arpeggio. And then I just played notes in the scale, again trying to avoid that E, because it would clash with the E flat. And again, this was for a long time my mentality for soloing, which would be, okay, we're in A minor, so when we go to the F chord, let's try to hit those chord notes. But I realized I never really hit chord tones like the E flat. That's one of the notes on the F dominant 7th chord. So why wasn't I targeting it? Well, I think it was because even though it is the flat 7 of the dominant 7th chord, in the context of A minor, it is that sharp 4 or flat 5. And I think unconsciously I ended up avoiding that note because, it doesn't work well in E minor. But that's the thing, even though the chord progression and the song, I guess, it's in A minor, we're not playing over an A minor chord. We're playing over an F dominant 7th chord. So even though it's a spicy note, which is what makes this chord progression interesting, if it was just an F major 7, contrasting the F major 7 with the F dominant 7th chord, even though the F major 7 sounds pretty, the F dominant 7th it's a little bit darker and jazzier in a way, bluesier. So we can target that E flat as being the dominant 7th of the F major chord when we go from A to F. And because it's a chromatic note, it can actually bring out some interesting ideas. I tried to make it a little bit too obvious that we were trying to land on that F dominant 7th chord and try to focus on that E flat a little bit. Of course, you don't need to be as obvious about it. You can just mix it in slightly with your old licks. It depends on what sort of vibe you're feeling. But I think it's an interesting thing that, sure, some of the jazz cats do it, and definitely some of the more sophisticated and recent blues players do, like Josh Smith definitely does it. And Joe Bonamassa sometimes does it, and I don't really mean to be shaming nobody nor saying that we're doing this wrong, but I think that most of our guitar lines, at least the ones that are not super shreddy and stuff like that, are sort of similar to vocal lines. And in general, especially nowadays, where music on the charts has this more basic pentatonic melody, maybe some of these spicier notes like that E flat over F in the context of A maybe isn't one of the most standard notes to try and hit, but it's something that I think you won't regret trying. And I really want to emphasize that this isn't really like a secret trick that nobody is really aware of, and that, you watching this video definitely don't do this. You may have done it and may do it and whatever, but it is something that if you're trying to sort of make your solos a little bit more fancy, like when it comes to that F dominant 7th chord, as I mentioned at the beginning, we could use the melodic minor scale and try to use some fancier scale like the Hungarian major scale. Which would work perfectly against that chord, but maybe in that more bluesier context, depending on what sort of sound you're trying to go for, it might not be the most appropriate thing to play, but maybe, as I mentioned at the beginning, mixing it up in your regular blues licks. Again, it's something that you can try to do, and as I mentioned before, in that chord progression, A minor, F7, E7, we can also do that in the E7, even though the note E is in our A minor pentatonic scale, and the note D is there as well. The note G sharp isn't really in our A minor pentatonic scale. And again, it's one of those notes that we probably wouldn't target, or at least wouldn't be one of the first notes we would try to target. We would probably try to hit one of those E's, or perhaps a D and an E. But again, E7 chord, you have the notes E, G sharp, B, and D. You can hit all of those notes. You don't really need to be picky about it. If I just go between A and E, I'll show you a couple of different ways you can sort of target those notes. So I guess summing this up real quick, next time you're playing over a chord progression that has chords that are almost in key but not necessarily in the key you're thinking of. Again, another example of this would be if we were in, like, I don't know, C major. Then we went for an F minor chord chord. The F minor chord isn't really in the C major key, it's in the C harmonic major scale. But again, let's not worry with scales right now. Again, we can play over that chord progression using the A minor pentatonic or C major pentatonic scale. Again, just C major, A minor pentatonic. We didn't really focus much on that chord tone of F, in this case being that A flat. That again is a note that spices up that chord progression if it was just an F major chord. Again, it's not like it sounds bad, but it doesn't really sound like... Again, that F minor chord makes it a little bit darker. But now let's try to improvise something over that chord progression, where I really try to hit that A flat. If you weren't able to pick it out, I started with the same sort of lick. But instead of resolving to one of the more stabler notes of the F minor chord, like the F or the C, and I hit the F as well, but there's that A flat, and here's the F minor triad / F minor arpeggio. It's not something that's revolutionary, at least I think, but it may help you out during your solos, and might be something you may want to consider. And hey, if you actually end up doing any of this sort of stuff, please film yourself playing it and post it on Instagram and then tag me on it. Not only will I see it, but I'll repost it and tag you on it, because I'd really like to see what you guys can come up with. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Again, thank you so very much for watching. Did you like the video? Was there something I missed? Something I should have said? Please leave it in the comment section below. And if you have suggestions for videos, I have this dedicated series called The 8, You Ask, I Teach. I know, pretty boring, generic, and self-explanatory title, but as you can probably guess, and as the name implies, in that series I pretty much teach anything you guys have in the comment section below. Well, guitar and their musical related, of course. We've done a couple of episodes, and I'll leave the playlist right here on the card section, but if you have something you want me to talk about, just leave it in the comment section below with the hashtag #8. And since we're talking about other videos, I highly suggest you check out my back catalog, because not only do I have other videos like this of soloing and improvising and more guitar skills sort of stuff, but I also do some other videos. I do songwriting and composing videos. Not only do I share tips and tricks with you, but I also have this series where I'm composing a song along with you guys, and I share my process with you. I have this other series called Bass Tricks for Guitar, which again is pretty self-explanatory, but for those who don't know, I started out as a bass player and gigged for a couple of years before I eventually moved on to guitar. So when I came to guitar, I guess I brought some things to my guitar playing that maybe those of you who didn't start out on bass either don't think about it or don't actually do. Or at least don't think about it in a conscious way. But I also do videos where I talk about music theory and explain it so that you guys can use it, discussions. Other times I take a look and transcribe a lick that I either think is interesting or a little bit different from whoever played the lick usually plays. And a bunch more, so please go check it out if you can. And yeah, I guess that's it. Again, thank you so very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications. If you can, share this video on social media and follow me on social media. And cheers!